There we are. We're live. All right. We'll just wait for hopefully some people will come in.
Oh, so I'm going to go to your webpage, copy the link, and stick it in mine. So
yeah.
That's how we'll do that.
Yeah. Go ahead and do that.
Let's see here. William Byrne is live now. Do you like Will, Bill, William?
I go by William.
Right on. Okay, let's see here. Let's go show video URL and copy. All right, I think. Let's see here. I'm out in the kind of the boonies, so I have like the fastest internet connection I could afford, but it's not laser quick. So I'm amazed that we're getting something smooth, but my internet's grinding a little bit here. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I hear it.
Okay, this will just take a second, then I'll turn off Facebook, which eats up a lot of resource cycles. Okay, so we're gonna go, hey everybody. Oh, gotta capitalize everybody, or E, everybody. And a link. And I think we're good. Cool. Hey everybody, William Byrne, veteran cartoonist, is interviewing me right now. Check it out. Awesome. I don't know if that'll suck too many people in, but
yeah, we got two people watching.
Right on. Okay, I'm gonna turn off Facebook because it's just like killing my computer here. All right, so I think we're free. So how big an audience do you generally pick up at this point?
I don't know. Like we earlier today, I had a few people commenting, but usually I think today we had about 7. I don't get a lot of, I don't know. A lot of people maybe look at it, it doesn't show up, who's watching or something like that.
This is the learning stage because everyone got COVID and bought cameras. And so yeah. Is that what inspired you?
No. What inspired me is that Evan Carmichael I was telling you about.
Okay.
He's.
I'm not familiar with his stuff. He's. What's he done?
Well, he was a computer software guy, and he sold his company or something. He started up a salsa. He bought a salsa company in Toronto called Toronto Salsa.
Like the corn chip dip salsa?
No, the dancing.
Oh, right. Okay.
And he decided to start up YouTube videos and motivate people. So he's done like thousands and thousands of videos over the years. So he's gotten better. Now he's got a whole crew kind of editing his photos or his videos, and he posts them up on Facebook. He's got one for the early morning motivation, and then he has one for top 10. So he'll get a celebrity or something, and then he'll take quotes from them and place them in a top 10 list.
Okay.
To help motivate people and stuff like that. And he was been talking about, you have to go out and do this stuff, if you want to.
You got to jump in, right?
You got to jump in. If you got a business, you got to do this stuff, We can't be quiet artists and sit in.
Not anymore, man. I mean, everything's changed so much. I mean, I guess about a year or so ago, I was like, all right, paper, that's the old system. You gotta, if you don't want to get rolled over by the wave of change, you gotta surf on top or some other motivational quote. And I said, all right, let's do this. And so I need a camera. I think my laptop has a camera in the little lid, and I couldn't get that to go. So I guess I should buy a camera. So I got that. And so, this is a piece of junk. And you sort of learn bit by bit how to sort of cobble together audio and video. And I've spent a lot of money on cameras and stuff because it became a hobby in and of itself, right? I've learned I know what bokeh is now. Notice how the background behind me is a little out of focus.
Yep.
That's bokeh. Or if there's a dude in Toronto who's like one of the best YouTube channels, he calls himself Camera Conspiracies. He calls it tone. because
Okay.
there's a bunch of I was like, okay, I want to learn how to run a video camera. Let's see if there's some YouTube videos on. There's an entire culture that just reviews cameras and a lot of information there. But there was this one dude, and he didn't just review the cameras. It was kind of like a vlog of his life, and he's a comedian. He's really just got this wonderful wit and sort of self-effacing humor. And I just found myself, I've already got the cameras I want. I don't care about cameras anymore. I just want to watch this guy do funny stuff, right? And he was sort of roasting another one of these really top-end, multi-million numbers of viewer, subscriber guys, Tony Northrup, I think. And Tony was going through this thing where he was doing heavy bokeh, like the background was super, super fuzzy, and there's this thin layer of like, this is the area that's in focus. And it was just really annoying to watch. And this guy, Casey from Toronto, was just like, that's stupid. And he just had this whole comedy routine. He says, yeah, we're not going to call it bokeh. We're just going to call it tone. And it's a bad thing. And so then for the next 6 months, he just referred to that effect as tone. And you see it sort of proliferating around camera sites now. He's like invented a new word based on this guy's name. It's lovely stuff, right? But I was looking at that going, man, that reminds me of the indie publishing scene back in the day. Remember the day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember the day?
You probably started when the big boom, the black and white boom happened, didn't you?
I think
Because I remember seeing your book.
I was part of the boom. Like what year would you sort of say that began? 1995, 96,
Yeah.
or?
Well, you could say the Ninja Turtles whenever they came out. I think they were the ones that started it.
And then I remember meeting you at some of those early cons. We were just like kids,
Yeah.
sort of going. We didn't really know what we were doing. I got a table for $50.
Yeah,
You put comics on it, I think, and you do sketches. Is this how we do it, right?
Yeah.
And there was there was a bevy of us kids just like hawking comics that we'd done ourselves. So many of us. It was a really, really fun time. Made a lot of good friends at that point, and it's really neat to sort of see who's kind of stuck it out. Like, you did, obviously. You're still plugging away. You're doing videos. It's like it's neat to see. I like seeing the sort of second wave of old adults that now that we've learned how to draw and do things a little bit more professionally. It's neat to see that people are like so in love with it. We're still here, clinging.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I just I'm not going to give it up. I love it too much. Collecting books too long. I suppose you started reading comic books at an early age.
It's funny. When I first got into self-publishing, they say, hey, what comics do you read? I said, I don't really read comics. And they're like, what? Why? How did you? I mean, I was reading things like, Dennis the Menace, like the Archie Digest kind of stuff, and the random comic that would sort of come my way. I got in because of animation. I was a big Miyazaki fan. And when I was a kid, I got a job at an animation studio in Toronto, just like a summer job. And they were doing like Snap, Crackle, and Pop ads, but I was like so fired up. I had to get a job there and thought, I got to be making movies. And then you realize, there's not a lot of, if you're just a gear in the works, you're not going to be realizing big visions of the stories that you have in mind. And so I was like, well, is there some way I can like fast track? Because I don't want to work my way up the ranks and hopefully become a director, maybe write something and hopefully not get burned out. And at the time, Ty Templeton, he was a Batman guy, he came into the studio to work on a project that we were doing in conjunction with DC. And he was very inspiring. He was a 20-something-year-old, and he was the coolest guy I'd ever met, and he could draw Batman. And that was around the time that the follow, I went back to school just to finish off high school, and that was when I discovered Dave Sims' work. A friend of mine was bringing in these old Cerebus issues, and I was like, what is this? It sort of felt like naughty, because it's like, this is like weird drug culture-y kind of, side. It was just Dave Sims' madness was beautiful, and it was very inspired like most of us. And he was basically, we're going to self-publish. And he was going through his, in his note from the president or whatever he called it, going through his trials with Diamond and the distribution networks. And we learned so much watching him try and be a business, an effective media company in this much bigger, like be a small fish in a shark's pond, right? And he was successful at it. And a lot of us, I think, came away going, maybe that's the way to do it. So that was what got me sort of started. But my love for Japanese anime at the time really, really inspired me. I've kind of dropped off. I'm not that interested in it anymore, but some of those, the fact that you couldn't get a hold of it was this mysterious stuff from overseas. You get like a manga book, and like, what is this? It's like a digest-sized black and white comic. What is that? No one knew, right? And I found that a big inspiration that kind of nudged me into the field. But like, what got you started?
What got me started was Richard Cumley, Captain Canuck.
Oh wow, yes.
I saw issue 3 of Captain Canuck, and I just fell in love with the paper, the color, and I'm like going. And this is the first time I've kind of like, connected myself. Like I think it was only maybe 14 then when Captain Canuck came out, and I'm like going like, because I was so used to seeing American comic books, and I go, wow.
Was Cumley was he a Nova was he a Newfoundlander as well?
No, he was from Winnipeg or something.
All right.
I'm not sure if they moved there or something, because he moves around quite a bit. I've known Richard for quite a while, so.
Oh, you reached out and you made a connection with the people who inspired you. They say like, in sort of the not the self-help, but like the inspirational speakers say, yeah, you have to make that connection. You can't just sort of sit in the background. If you want to take the next step, shake the hand and talk to the people who motivated you personally. And it's a very powerful step. So when did you get a chance to meet him?
Well, I actually called him when I was living in Newfoundland. And when I moved in 85 to Cambridge, funny thing is, he moved to Cambridge.
Oh, wow.
So he had a studio on Grand Avenue in Galt.
Okay.
Cambridge used to be 3 separate towns. Galt, Preston, and Hespeler.
Okay.
So they amalgamated back in, I don't know when they amalgamated, but we always called them these sections Preston, Hespeler, and Galt.
Yeah.
So he moved to Galt, that's the south end of Cambridge, and set up a studio on Grand Avenue. And they did an interview with him in the local paper, which was the Cambridge Reporter. And they listed where his address was for his studio. I was that excited 14-year-old kid, because I was in my 20s then, and I went down and met him, and we talked about comic books, and give me some tips on drawing and stuff like that. But I think my big lesson from drawing was probably Dave Sim.
Yeah.
Because I sent Dave Sim some drawings that I did, and he wrote back and he told me about this one artist. I forget who it was. I got the letter somewhere. I gotta find it and get it framed. And he said this artist told him that you have to do 10,000 bad drawings before you start doing some good drawings.
Yeah.
And so when I did my second book, I sent him the book, and he was just floored, because the artwork in that second book just blew him away.
Did he ever do did he do one of those previews? Because he was promoting people like indie comics for a couple of years. He had this whole indie comics parade. And did you ever get featured in Cerebus?
No.
Oh, that's a shame. That should have happened. But there were so many. It was like a grab bag at the time. I want to ask you, when you cold called, was it Richard Cummings? Is the guy's name?
Cumley.
That's so brave, because that's like the scariest phone call of your life, especially when you're young. Your heart's in your throat, and you got his number. Like, how did that? Tell me about that day. I want to know.
Well, it was really exciting. We talked for a little bit. I don't recall the whole conversation, because that's like
how did you introduce yourself? I mean, you said hi,
Yeah, and I told him my name. I said, I'm a fan of yours. I said, I really love your stuff. He was quite friendly, even when I met him in person for the first time. I just walked into the studio, and he was doing some work. He showed me some of the artwork he had and stuff he was working on, because I think he was doing Star Rider then.
Okay.
Starboarder was a character that traveled to the past or some to change the future.
Okay. That's what
And
they're always trying to do. Whenever you go to the past, it's never.
yeah, look at Marty. You know, he
Yeah,
messed
yeah,
up. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. Oh, but that's an interesting period that we lived through where you could cold call a famous person that you admire, and
Yeah,
there was a pretty good chance that he would pick up or she would pick up the phone, and you're talking to that person, and
yeah.
you sort of that's marvelous. Like,
Well, he
yeah.
had in his book Starboarder, he had a book. He had small stories in there. It was like a black and white magazine,
Mhm.
colored covers, but newsprint, and it was magazine size. And he had a story in there called "The Raft," and he had Tom Grumpet. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's done like stuff for Superman and
Mm.
stuff like that. And I remember calling him up because I had an original artwork that Richard had given me
Mm.
called from the Raft, and I went and got the phone book and found his phone number because I went to the library and I think they had all the provinces phone books.
Yeah.
I flip through and I go, oh, Gruttmt or something like that,
Uh-huh.
and I just looked it up and I called him up and I said, "Are you the artist that works on DC?" So I think I talked to him for about a half an hour, uh,
Wow.
and I asked him if I could send the artwork off to have him sign it and stuff like that. I did sign it, send it off to him, never got it back.
Oh, well, that I
Yeah,
can understand. Mail sort of comes through and you have like 25 things to do, and or like sometimes I'll get like a request, Mark, can you do a sketch for me? I say, yes, absolutely. It'll come in, and I'll do a sketch. I go, oh, that's really not a very good sketch. I'll do it. Oh, I have to do this other thing. I'll get to it. And then the next day, oh, I have to do that sketch. Oh, I'm kind of burned out from this last piece of work I did. And it just sort of tomorrow becomes a whole series of tomorrows. And you just kind of hope that the universe forgets that it ever happened. And then you
yeah,
think, oh, I'm a bad person, but other times like I'll go way out of my way. Like okay, that's it. I'm doing a sketch for someone, and I'll sort of spend all day just trying to make it something really, really nice and mail it off. But with the correspondence, although email makes it a lot easier these days, that's for sure.
oh, it does. You don't have to lick a stamp and lick the envelope closed.
There's something about it that I missed though. Like you were showing me earlier those beautiful giant pages that you were doing, and there's something about I don't I kind of have you brought that out for your viewers before?
I think I might have brought out
That big
maybe a page or two, but not. I think I showed you a little bit more
okay.
than I usually show any page. As it's hard to get, it's like big, and I have to
I
go in
know
my storage room back there. Yeah.
I won't make you do it again, but oh my God, that
Well,
sort of thing just,
I got them all here next to me now.
dude, bring out that big one with the street corner. That was just like
Yeah, honey.
breathtaking, you know?
I believe I still got it here. Hopefully, I didn't put it back in there. Oops.
Because we were talking before we went live, and Will was like, yeah, I worked on huge papers. Like, how huge? And he pulls out this thing. I'm like, oh my God. Like, he wasn't kidding, right? There it is. Oh, yeah. Got it upside down.
There we go.
You know, yeah, that's just magnificent, And nobody works that big, except I did, like I was telling you, I saw that Hairgate is the guy who did Tintin, and
Yeah.
he would work on these huge pages like that. Like, that the big rocket ship, they had that story where Tintin goes to the moon, and they have that big rocket ship, and Snowy's in his little dog spacesuit. I got to see the original artwork for the moonscape that the rocket landed, and the little characters sort of standing on a ridge looking down at it, and it was just it was that big, and I was like, oh my God, what have we done? We shouldn't be shrinking our efforts down. We should be expanding, So yeah, that's whoops, my screen just went dark there, and we're back. Okay, so yeah, that's oh my goodness. But yeah, like I have this Cintiq now, or it's kind of a Cintiq. It's a Dell. Dell made it, and it allows me to sort of draw on screen while talking. I was doing a Tim Pool sketch. You know this guy? It's not a very good. I'm not very good at or what do they call it? Portraits.
Right,
But,
right.
he's just a YouTuber. He's just a young kid. He's kind of like the next generation of media people, like what we were doing with comics the next generation is doing with YouTube videos and cameras and stuff, and they're trying out new things, and they're sort of making an impression for themselves. They're just, I think, like Tim's like 33 or something like that, 34, and he's a news guy, and I'm just very inspired and really proud watching like the new generation come up, and they're so smart and so quick and so inventive. And instead of working on the medium that we had available, which was comics and publishing on paper, they're all digital, and they're making videos and whatnot. And yeah, Tim's like that picture does not do him justice, but he's this dude with a beanie and a big scruffy facial hair, and he does like 3 or 4 broadcasts a day, and he just talks about current events. And like I watch him instead of like real news, because he's better. He's got no biases, or he has his biases, but he's not like, it's not corporate, right? So anyway, but
this is my own tablet here.
Oh, I have one of those. It's that's the Wacom Bamboo, I think. Is that what it is? Or no, it's a Graphire.
Yep.
Yep. That's a very old tablet, man. Mine died, and I ended up getting the kind with the screen under. But that was a real learning curve. It's a little weird learning how to draw on a piece of glass,
Yeah. Well, with that, you can't look at the screen. That's why I bought the Huion.
Huion. Yep.
Yeah. Trying to
Did you just get that?
I just got that last week.
Okay.
So I'm playing with it. I'm watching. When I run I haven't hooked it up to this computer, but it's seems to only hook up to the laptop. So I'm finding it. I've got a small little coffee table. I've got it on.
Yeah.
I did some coloring because I'm got another project on the go. I want to write superhero books.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a superhero. I think I showed you when I was scanning the room around the North Shield.
Okay.
In the frame. So I've done that I've had about four or five people work on that.
Everybody, really?
Yeah. I had one guy from Hamilton. He ended up quitting. He only had a few more pages to finish off. He quit. He didn't feel the comic books were his future. So I tried to package it as best I could to see if I could get it printed. Had some reviews in some of those distributors that are no longer around anymore. There was one in Toronto or something that was a distributor. Can't think of the name now. Andromeda.
That was a while ago. Andromeda.
Yeah. And
that was the 90s, man.
Yeah. So they did a review on it. What we showed them, they loved it. Then I ended up getting a guy from Montreal to work on it. Paid him for everything except for the coloring, because he wasn't showing me what he was getting done with the coloring, because that's when computers just came out.
Right.
And he wanted ownership of the character. I wasn't willing to give it up because he didn't help me develop the storyline.
Hey, he was the colorist and he wanted ownership?
No, he was the artist. He was the artist.
Okay. All right.
He was a penciler, inker, letterer, and colorist. And
it's a fair amount of input energy. I can understand, but it's like those negotiations are so tough, man.
Yeah.
Like, so many deals get sunk just in the legalese. Like, you know what? This is so complicated. Just, I want to draw the next panel. Go away. Stop calling me,
Yeah.
It's very hard to sort of work out those kind of deals. And I notice the people who do, when I get into the nitty gritty with them, I'm going, so you're barely making a dime off this stuff. You sort of see these titles out there in comic shops and you learn, oh, really? You're not. It's, I don't know. I always got turned off at that point. The School of Dave Sim taught that you get paid. You don't take shit from no one. And you're perfectly willing to walk away from contracts, but then you have no contracts. And so self-publishing is pretty much the way to go if you want to make any money at it. But it's also mind-numbing. Like, it's hard to work with other people.
Yeah, because he was very difficult to work with. And he was starting to inject stuff into the story which I didn't really want, because if you're working with a partnership in drawing or anything, you're gonna have you're gonna have to talk between both of you, and come up with an agreement on doing the stuff. But he wanted to control everything, And I got to the point,
Yeah.
and I walked away. And then he tried to publish it on his own. Put it in Diamond, claimed it as his own. He wrote it and drew it. So I went to a lawyer. Lawyer says, well, unless he's making money, you can't sue. And I said, well, I don't want him to make money, but then I can't fight him then. So I found a paralegal lawyer that was able to write to Diamond, tell them that I own the copyright. Diamond dropped it right away. Then I never heard from him for years. And then he called me up, I think about 10 years later or something, and he wanted some like $100,000 for everything. And I said, well,
I don't think anyone has $100,000, man.
Yeah. And I said, man, I already paid you for this stuff.
Yeah.
For at least your artwork, your line work, you know? And I said, I got receipts here. Well, he kept on saying I didn't pay him.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, I got receipts here because I kept all of my receipts. I'm just my parents called me a hoarder, but I like to keep documents and paper and stuff like that. So if something does go wrong, you got the piece of paper and say, hey, I got proof here, you know?
Right.
And but anyway, he left. Didn't hear from him, and I was searching something on the internet with his name, and I came across a blog called somethingawful.com.
I've heard of that.
And it's a website that you if you don't like a movie, you can put hateful things about it.
Charming.
Yeah. So he scanned in my Max Burger book. He scanned it from the comic book. So it made the scan terrible. Posted it up, bashed me, told me I forced him to draw soldier men that smoke cigars and half-naked women. Well, geez, that sounds like a good book to me. You know, I didn't have any of that in it. And I'm like, there were some people that actually looked at my artwork and said, "Oh, that's pretty good." You know, I don't see anything wrong with that. But I haven't heard from him since. So,
man, that was a whole other paradigm. I feel like the entire universe has shifted. Like it's almost like the physical laws have adjusted themselves just a bit. And like it almost seems like when I think back on my time in indie comics, it almost feels like reviewing a story that someone else has written, and it was almost like a dramatic sequence. And it had like villains and heroes and great exploits and horrible tragedies and all of that. And it's almost like, oh yeah, I was there, but I remember it as though it was a story about me, you know. And now we're in this whole other paradigm where, you know, William's doing interview shows on Facebook, right? And we've got these new projects happening. But just the other day, I was like, okay, man, I've got to finish this Thieves and Kings story. I'm feeling the energy rising again for that. And I scanned in a bunch of pages that I'd been working on slowly, and piecing it together. I'm like, wow, I wonder if I can pull some of that up. Let me. Well, I've got some pages here. This is my physical paper.
What issue are you up on your book?
Oh man, I'll show that another time. I'm working on ostensibly 3 projects. I'm doing a little strip called Star Drop, and that's for a local town paper. And that's been probably the most, I wouldn't say rewarding, but the most regular work that I do, because it's every 2 weeks. I haven't missed an episode in like 10 years, and I've been at it for a little more than 10 years now.
Nice.
And it's a cute little story, but it's quite expansive, and the characters are quite involved, and it just really, really sucks my attention down. I love it, you know. And I've created so that's kind of like, it's an all ages comedy drama. I call it Anne of Green Gables from space, about a space princess who fell to Earth, and she's in the town that I'm living in. So I sort of draw local landmarks and backgrounds, and kind of talk a little bit about town life. And it's been quite popular here, and it has a readership that is the size of the town. I think they sell like 5,000 or 10,000 copies of the paper, or it's a giveaway paper, right? So it's paid for by advertising, but everybody knows the characters, and they know me on the streets, and it's just quite nice. So I'm like local famous, but outside of that, the only way you'd be able to read it is on the internet, or if you order a book. I used to sell them through the comic shops, but that sort of network, I don't even know if Diamond's like operating on sort of a pilot light at this point. It's sort of everything's sort of crumbling. So it's like if you're not in the digital sort of life raft or ocean liner, it looks like a very big endeavor. There's a lot of money being made now by comics. But that's what's one project. Then I have another one, which is a science fiction thing, and it's a little bit more serious. And that's also posted on my website. It's called Jenny Mysterious. It's about a time traveler who's sort of a ninja, and my interest in sort of paranormal and conspiracy theory stuff. It's like X-Files, but with kung fu. And that's been a lot of fun to work on. So I'm publishing that as well. And I recently just did a scene that was set in downtown Toronto in the 80s. So I had to do all this visual research, and it was just mind-breaking. I just did an interior of the Eaton Center a little while ago, and it was just almost broke me, but it's done. And then there's Thieves and Kings, which I also sort of relaunched. I guess I got up to like a couple thousand pages of that and sort of put it on the back burner because I was just I really had to take a break from it because I was writing stuff and it wasn't genuine anymore. It didn't feel like I wasn't connecting with the characters, and so I sort of put it aside. But they've been sort of whispering to me in my thoughts. So I'll sort of find myself walking around town going, oh, what if my characters did this, or what if they solved the situation, this problem in this particular. When you start daydreaming about stories, that's when you know you're ready to go again. So I've been working on that. I have a release that I'm doing fairly soon in that regard. And then all this video stuff is my other sort of passion. I just came home from an interview show. I was interviewing a local guy who's just this young business dude. He's got a bunch of ideas. We had this really fun chat. He's into massage therapy and acupuncture, and he's got these online businesses, and he lives in a yurt with his family, and it's just like really, really cool talk, and I'm going to post that a bit later as well. So there's a lot going on, but I really feel like we've left behind, like we all have our tragedies. Like my got burned story was, remember Quebecor, Le Bon Fond, the big printing agency? They lost a whole bunch of film, and it was a legitimate mistake. I was very upset at the time because that was kind of like my legacy. Like that's my hard copy. That's the film. Thousands of dollars of film just gone, and it was unreplaceable, and they couldn't do anything. Like, I was thinking, well, do I sue? I didn't want to go. So I just sort of, that was sort of the final, put the nail in the coffin, or not the coffin, but just put it on the back burner and turn the heat off. I have to get away from that. There's a time when something's very healthy and very right, and then if you start clinging to it as the paradigm starts to change, it can become something unhealthy. And I did not want that to happen. That was kind of like the way the universe was saying, you got to let go, dude, or we're going to let go for you. And so several years have passed since then. I've just been involved in these other projects, and then when you least expect it, it kind of bubbles up to the surface again. I'm going to actually pull up some graphics from that. Let me see. Sure. Let's see here. Here's a page I'm working on. Let's see if Clip Studio, have you got the software for your Huion sorted out yet? Are you using Clip Studio?
They didn't give me any software. Just I had to download the drivers for the tablet, and that was it. That's all they offered.
So you need a drawing program. This is some of the work. You can't really see it here. It's like the split screen doesn't give you a lot of, lot to work with. But this is one of those text pages that I do. I just haven't put the text in there yet. So I'm drawing this big sequence with witches and sorceresses and have all these scrolls in the background. I'm really, going to be putting this out soon, man. I just have to put the gray tones in there. And like I'm excited again about this. This is like, there's all these stories that I sort of left hanging, and it's time to wrap them up. So that's kind of my big passion right now. So nice. That's what I'm up to. But it's all digital now. Like there's a time when, like when you pulled out that big corner, that street corner thing, it was glowing. It's just black and white, but it's giving off light almost. This is why I think, man, we should do, or you should definitely try and get that stuff hanging live in a gallery, just because to be able to walk in front of that big an expression, because it took you a year to do 20 pages?
Yeah, it was a year and a half, yeah, for
A
20
year and
pages.
a half. Think
Yeah.
about all that life energy that you're channeling into the, and I really believe that it gets like there's an indelible imprint of that energy, and people they only see the ink, but they feel it. I know that when I pull up my old artwork and I'm looking at the traditionally drawn, pen and ink on paper, it's a real object. It's not a digital facsimile. It's it always look even though I couldn't draw as well as I can now, it just looks way better. It looks more beautiful, and I'm like, part of me is like very excited about the digital frontier that we're on. There's so much you can do. It's very exciting, and the newness and tinkeriness of it I find very enlivening. But there's some piece of soul like that the old paper systems, like the film reproduction systems, maintain that it just I think comics are more alive 20 years ago, in a sense that's hard for humans to sort of perceive, but was what we could feel. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
that's that's me rambling on that.
Yeah, well, I
Oh
haven't
dear.
gone into drawing yet on the computer yet. Still sticking with the paper, and I'll scan it on my 11 by 17 brother computer printer scanner.
Oh, I got the same one. Isn't that was
Yeah,
that like the best deal in the world? Like $300, man. You got yourself an
yeah,
11 by 17-inch scanner.
yeah. I got it at Staples. I bought it at Staples maybe about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep. Same here. Did
Yeah,
you ever use the color printing portion? Did you play with that at all?
I print stuff out in color. Um, I've just last couple of years I got a light box. Somebody had a custom made light box, so now I'm printing out my layouts. I'll scan my layouts in, blow them up to 11 by 17, and then take them to the light box, and then I'll trace some of my layouts that way. I'm not too fussy about the light box that I bought off them because it's got a wooden frame around it, and it's hard to lay the 11 by 17 bristle board and the copy paper on top,
Yeah.
so I can do the tracing, or vice versa,
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm having a hard time sliding it in, and find I've got to tape it down and stuff like that. But
I'd
I
reckon
won't.
I Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just gonna say that usually when I scan it in, I'll digitally fix stuff a little
Yes.
bit. I'll go in. No, oh, I see a line here that does not supposed to be there. How did that get in? Let's get rid of that.
This is the thing these screens are good at. So let's try some of those edits. Like, so I got this weird hand here, like that. To this little sequence here looks a little funny. So you can zoom right in. Let's see if I can get it onto the monitor so everyone can see it. Like, that's what's up with that hand. That doesn't look right. So yeah, you can totally like get rid of this bizarre finger here, and now the trick though, or the thing that I'm not, I got suckered into it. Not suckered. It's like I enjoy it. Is like I draw directly into the computer now. There's no paper step, and there we go. I think that looks better. And there's a line. I've got line quality. Like my brush work got good since I stopped using a real brush, and it allowed me to undo mistakes because brushes are so unforgiving, right? Um, let's see here. This is oh yeah. Then you can like fix little mistakes like up here. Make these smooth lines. But this was like originally done with pen and ink, and then scanned, right? But let's pull up a different one here. And then I have like, I was working on some Superman. There's Kal-El. I got this cool Superman comic, and I was like, oh man, those guys really knew how to draw 70 years ago. This is like from the 50s, right? So you can like, oops. I got my computer also doing the streaming, so it's a little juddery right now, but you can like work right onto the screen, right? And there's something quite fulfilling about it. Then you can do different layers, so there's a lot of efficiency, and I really enjoy that. But when I meet people like you who are still working on paper, I'm like, you know what? you should be the other half of the experiment. I'll be the digital half. I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of my sort of art soul to play with the technology side. But it really makes me encouraged to know that there's guys like you out there going, no, I'm going to stay pen and ink, because I think there's something that we're really losing if everybody goes digital, right? So, but I think if you can marry the two together and like you say, like do corrections on the digital side using the board, then that's probably the best of both worlds.
Well, I was talking to Dan Frega about it on Friday, and we're talking about artwork on paper and stuff. And he still does his stuff on paper.
Yep.
He says then you can, if you do a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, you have original artwork that you can sell.
Yes. That's a very important aspect. And in fact, a lot of the best artists out there, some of the most successful, like Ethan Van Sciver, he's a paper guy. There's a dude in Moncton. I can't remember his name, but he's a big Marvel dude. Oh, what's it? Nick Bradshaw. Are you familiar with his work?
Yeah.
I got to see his studio because there was a convention in Moncton, which is quite a lot of fun, and he's like the big shot around there. Really, really nice guy, and he's built like a dwarf. He actually looks like a good guy, like a character from Lord of the Rings, right? And he took a bunch of artists to his home and said, "Hey, this is my studio," and it was a beautiful traditional studio. Like he's got his feng shui down. It was just like the room felt like you're in this wizard's cavern, but the lighting was warm, and his drafting board was this one big sheet of tempered glass, so you could see your knees through the thing. He would tape everything to that and work in that regard. And then he had on his walls, like his dream board he had some beautiful artwork by all these, well-known artists. Like he had a lot of, not John Byrne. I'm so bad with my traditional cartoonist people. Like I know all the people who are like, I can tell you about manga artists, but it was just, his walls were dripping with beautiful, beautiful superhero stuff. Art Adams, that was the guy's name. He has several original Art Adams pieces, and they were just like immaculate. You're like, oh my! I came home going, skip this digital stuff, man. Keeping it on paper is the way to go, but I'm on the track that I'm on, and it seems to be rewarding me. So I'm gonna keep exploring it. That's my job. It's your job to be William Byrne, and it's Nick Bradshaw's job to be Nick Bradshaw, and So.
Now I've got a page here. Where is it? Is this one? Yep. I got one from Steve Bissett.
Oh, really?
Who did Swamp Thing?
Oh yeah, Bissett's a hero. Oh, gorgeous.
Look at the lines on this. Those eyes, that's the first page of the new Swamp Thing with Alan Moore writing it. And Steve Bissett was in Toronto at a convention where George Perez was at.
Yeah.
And there's a page behind me you can barely see up where my drawing table is.
Yep.
There's two John Byrne pages. The far one over there, let me see if I can turn the camera.
I'm gonna get you to get your camera tour around your studio again.
Yeah, well, we'll stop here. I can't pull the camera too far over.
Right here.
But the far one over there, the frame, is a John Byrne Fantastic Four page, where the Thing went to the Beyonder world. He's in an old German wagon. It's like a paddy wagon.
Covered wagons. Okay.
Yeah, and he's in there with Frankenstein and the Wolfman. Now the Wolfman is human. The Thing has got a big brace around his neck, but the artwork on that is brilliant, and that was going up for auction. It started at $5. I had $80 in my pocket.
I
think maybe it was $90. Sorry, $90, and we got up to $60, and I said $90. The whole stadium went quiet because I said, I am getting that page. And I waited and waited and waited. Nobody else bid on it, and I go, oh, thank God I got it. If it was any higher, I would have had to walk away because that's all I had in my wallet.
Right.
But
Oh
yeah, that
man.
you could hear a pin drop in that place. Everybody could hear. First, you hear, and then it just went silent.
Oh my God. But think about it now, $90 for an original John Byrne.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can do that today, you know. It's
and
um
then now that's signed by him too. It says to William Byrne from John Byrne. The other one I have over here, it says to cousin William, John Byrne.
oh nice.
Yeah.
Man, I don't have any pages like that. I've got some original cells from some of my favorite Miyazaki films, and
Yeah.
I spent a lot of money on those. I was at San Diego, the big show there, and there was some dude who was just selling. I don't know where he got all these animation cells from. Maybe knew someone in the business or spirited them out the back door or whatever. But he had some cells from some big titles. I got one from Kiki's Delivery Service. Are you familiar with that film?
No, no.
No. Oh man, do you know Miyazaki stuff at all? Dude, you are in for a treat. It's
Okay.
easy. Like, you know, you don't have to go hunt them down. You
All
might
right.
even be able to find them on the Disney Channel because Disney does a lot of the distribution. They're huge. Um, but it's one of those Japanese directors, but he's kind of like the Spielberg of Japan, and that's not putting him on high enough a pedestal. You know, like he's an exceptional storyteller with a very warm heart, and his animations, Studio Ghibli, you know, is the studio that he founded, and they've done. Let me see if there's any that you would recognize. There was a big movie called Spirited Away. Are you familiar with that one? No,
I'm not sure.
oh,
Spirit Away. Let me see. I'm just gonna check on Spirit Away. Did you say?
Spirited Away.
Okay. I think I might have seen this one. I'm looking at some images here.
Another of his big famous ones was Princess Mononoke. Uh, anyway, he if you haven't seen these, they're simply just hunt them down your local video store. You can get them easily, and you will just you'll sort of see what inspired me to get into storytelling. He was a big inspiration, among other inspirations. Did you what were some of your other inspirations like outside of comics, creatively?
Mm,
Did you have any like favorite I don't know, musicians or authors that really propelled you? Just said, oh, you know what? I'm feeling the creative electricity coming off that. It's making me want to be a creator myself.
I would say George Lucas.
Oh yes, you
When
know.
I saw Star Wars, um, well, how I found about Star Wars was a magazine called Starlog.
You found out about Star Wars through Starlog.
Starlog, yes.
Whoa.
I picked up issue 2 or something of Starlog, and I
Uh,
fell in love with the magazine. I said, "Wow." My parents had just moved back from Newfoundland to Preston, and I was how many 4 blocks away from a variety store. I gotta tell you the story about this variety store,
right on.
Lou's Variety. Man, you walked in, and you've been in Chapters, Indigo. You know they have the racks of magazines,
Sure.
and so you walk in the store, and they had rolls like for food and stuff like that. And they had one roll for magazines. It started with the Playboys, and it went all the way to the middle. Well, it went down to the end. I don't know what was at the other end, but the middle of the rack or the aisle
Mm.
had comic books, science fiction magazines. So every Friday, I go down with my allowance. I get $5 a week allowance.
Right.
$5 back in 1973, 74.
Oh my God, you could buy a car for that much, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I could go for a week on chips and pop
Yep.
and stuff like that on $5, and comic books, 25. I think they were about 20 or 25 cents back then. And you walked in the store, it was like walking into a candy store because
Yeah.
they had so many comic books, and I was away from comic books for a long time. And I walked in the store, and every week I go down and buy the comic books. And then I seen Starlog there, and I picked that magazine up, and it was talking about this new movie called Star Wars, and they were showing some conceptual art and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And I George, when I went and seen the movie, I was blown away by his way of his directing and stuff like that. It just
That's really neat. So how old were you when Star Wars came out?
I think I was about 14.
Okay. I'm a fair bit older than you. I was 7. I was 7 years old when Star Wars came out, and the way it presented itself to me was through the Whisper, not the Whisper Network, the what do you call it? The Chatter Network in grade school. So I'm in grade 2, and on the playground there'd be one kid who would see it and say, "Yeah, I saw this cool thing called Star Wars." And because your friends are 7, they focus on they're not good at encapsulating what a whole story was. He said, and there's this little robot, and he was coming through a hall, and then all these stormtroopers were coming the other way, and he got scared and zoomed around. Remember that little sequence? So the little, and that was what he remembered. You're like, what? But he was just so electrified by so you go home, Mom, Dad, I got to go watch this Star Wars movie, and or I don't even think I did that. I think I was just downstairs watching Gilligan's Island or whatever. My mom came down. She'd been talking to her friends, and she goes, Mark, would you like to go see a movie? And this is like a Tuesday afternoon. I'm like, what? You can do? Okay. So she took me out to the movies, and we watched Star Wars together. And we were both like, we're blown away by the experience of it. Like, I still remember the visuals. And because I lived in a small town in New Brunswick, it wasn't a very big theater. All of our neighbors were there. So all my friends were around me, and their moms and their dads. And they were just like, we're all watching Star Wars together in this bizarre, like, communal experience. Everything's very, very different. Like I said, we're in a new paradigm. We're closer to Blade Runner than we were back then. But back then there's something very, very special about it. And do you remember the other thing too? Like after you saw it, you couldn't go see it again. There were no VCRs. We had to, get Starlog or, or go back to the theater. So you'd watch it a few times, and it would leave town.
How many times have you counted how many times you've seen Star Wars?
No, I haven't. It's not that many. I think I might have seen it. It's under 10, for sure.
Under 10.
Yeah. It's I think I saw it twice when it was out originally, and then you wait forever, and then VCRs and pay-per-view sort of happened, and then you sort of see it once or twice after. I might have, and before the special editions came back to the theaters, where they added Luke screaming on the way down. What a mistake. But when they added all that stuff, I think I might have seen Star Wars maybe 6 times. Maybe. Wow. Yeah.
I way beat your record there. I've seen it a total of 20 times.
Okay. It seems weird now that I say it. Like, why did I only watch it so few times? That's really, Like, I feel like the memories... I feel like I know the story backwards and forwards, but I only really saw it.
It's you've probably seen it on like VHS tapes a lot. I still have the original tape, the VHS tape.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It's the uncut one. It was the one that was the original, but it's not widescreen. That's the one thing that I disappointed. But when they had the 20th anniversary of Star Wars, the theater I originally seen it 20 years at that time aired it. It was closing the movie theater, and they showed Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So I went and seen it 2 more times to make it 20, so I can remember the 20th anniversary that I seen Star Wars. So if it ever comes out again for the 40th anniversary or 50th anniversary, I'll be going there for like 10 more times.
Catch up, man. You gotta do some catching up, Yeah. Oh dear. Do you still have a working VCR?
Yeah, I think I showed you.
Yeah, you did. That's right. It's
when I did a zoom around the office before we started.
That's right. It's like you're one of the few, man. Like the guy that I live with, it's an ex-girlfriend's dad. I sort of,
Yeah.
it's this wonderful family that I'm sort of connected to, and he's got an old VCR. Like he doesn't have a DVD player, or maybe he does. But anyway, there's a VCR here. I'm like, whoa, it's like that's a museum piece. Does it still work? Because there's like rubber parts inside that break down over time, but no, it works. And his grandkids will sort of, we want to watch a movie, so he has all these old Disney cassettes, and I'm like, wow, I haven't rewound a tape in like 20 years, man. This is a very interesting experience. But a buddy of mine, huge Star Wars fan, and he was like, oh no, he's going to be changing and editing. No, hang on. See if I can get the story correctly. Anyway, they done like a remastering. So you're getting widescreen, the colors have been brought up, but it didn't include any of the new special effects or the deleted scenes or anything like that. It was just what we saw in the theaters, but cleaned up. And they released it on Laserdisc. Did you ever have remember Laserdiscs? That sort of weird orphaned technology that no one went with, but was actually pretty cool. He got all three, the first three films on Laserdisc, because this is the last time that they're going to be released this nicely, because he's changing them after this. So he has these beautiful copies. Didn't even have a Laserdisc player, right? And then Lucas did, made some. I don't know. I question the wisdom of going back into an old project and making editorial changes to something that's become a part of culture. There's a whole argument there. And here I am talking to a guy I redrew Max Berger, man, but did you get any pushback from that to interrupt my story here?
Any what do you mean pushback?
Well, fans going, you shouldn't have redrawn this. You should have.
Nope. Nobody said, you see I'm going to have to send you a couple of the pages.
Sure.
I've got them all scanned in, got them lettered. I'm just trying to figure out how to set up my Indiegogo campaign.
That's the other part of our new paradigm is crowdfunding, man. Like what a concept. It's these Indiegogo campaigns, man. Holy smoke. And the GoFundMe's, and that's a really interesting, paradigm shift element. And you were seeing cartoonists, lowly cartoonists getting big on YouTube and then making hundreds of thousands of dollars selling comics directly to customers.
Look at Ethan Van Sciver with Cyberfrog. Have you been following that?
Oh, that whole drama. It's that was marvelous. I was like, very excited about that. Just seeing the electricity and the fighting energy and the beautiful artwork and just the comedy that's whoops, I lost you again. My screen's set to go dark every 15 minutes. I should do something about that. Yeah, I think that's fat. It was like the heart of the black and white comics boom again. Because I think the universe moves in cycles, and that he's sort of the new Dave Sim, this sort of crotchety old man who's making comics and fighting the world, and everyone kind of loves him and hates him at the same time, and he's changing the industry. I think that's just, I look at those kinds of patterns and I'm just like, isn't this wonderful? These are the times we live in. This is what art should be. It shouldn't be easy. It should be full of love and blood and all of this sort of thing. And I didn't get Cyberfrog, but there's another guy, Richard Meyer. He does a channel called Comics Matter, and he reviews comics. He's just a really, really interesting person. He's working on a series of comics as well that have done really well on these Kickstarter kind of platforms. I find that fascinating. And so I thought, maybe I should sort of involve myself in YouTube as well. I didn't want to get into the sort of the cultural debate. That doesn't really interest me. But I do think that that's a great way to connect with your audience, right? And I don't know. There's so much that hasn't really. It's like the dice have been thrown in the air, and a few of them have fallen. But there's so many like random numbers that haven't really revealed themselves yet, and we're seeing this new world sort of form itself in front of us. We're like writing the rules right now, and I wonder where are comic shops going to fit into all of that. I really want to see. I want to be able to go into a shop, buy comics. Is Diamond going to survive the next few months? How is that all going to pan out? There's so many questions in the air, but the thing that I'm encouraged by is that the creative fire is burning and it's hot, you know, and it's and the wheat and the chaff are sort of separating from one another. And I just think there's a lot of very, you know, in times of disaster and chaos, there's also real beauty that comes through too. So yeah, I find it a very encouraging time.
I like to see comic books come back into convenience stores and stuff, you know, drugstores and stuff like that. I remember going into, like, when I lived down east, down in Newfoundland. I visited this town called Harbor Grace, and there was a drugstore down there. And you walk in, you can smell the build. It's an old building, you know, and you can smell whatever was in, you know, either the medications or whatever, but they had a certain smell, and when you walked in, you could remember that smell. And
for me, it was cracking comics open. Different printing presses would use different ink formulations, and so a Cerebus had a particular odor, and we are so keyed. Like, smell and memory are like really tightly linked.
Yeah.
These old manga books, like what they would do is they take an animated Japanese movie and say, okay, well, we're just going to take still frames and turn it into a comic books, and then they print it in color. And they had this particular smell that was like, whoa, those Japanese printing presses. You know, you're taken into this other world of amazing characters and beauty and adventure, and that smell is strongly associated with me. And so yeah, I was hold on one sec. Give me 2 seconds. Just want to grab something.
Yep.
Whoops. All right, so we have a used bookstore that's also a comic shop, and one of my favorite things to do is go in and buy these things. These are these old amazing stories, you know, short story, you know, anthology books, science fiction, and like this one was printed in January 1973, and it cost 75 cents, right? And for me, this is like current reading, so I'll sort of plow through a bunch of these things and go down and buy a bunch more. And this was tapping into the paradigm before we came around. And there were all these wonderful science fiction authors like plumbing that new territory. Let's see if I can find. They look cheaply printed, you know, but they would print tens of thousands of copies of these things, right? You know, there's just black and white printing. It's just straight text, but they were learning about, you know, like they just put a rocket on the moon, right? In the 60s, 67, I think it was. And all of that was super fresh in their minds. So you had that fire, that creative fire was burning really, really hotly through these things. And so I find I can sort of tap into those old, that period of innovation. And even though nobody looks at this stuff now, no one, you know, I guess you can still find amazing stories on magazine racks, but whew, those things transport me, and I'm like, okay, that was the paradigm before the last paradigm. I use that word a lot. It's my favorite. That's my nickel word for today, paradigm. But that was how reality had formed itself around creative types and people who were in love with science fiction and fantasy. And I think that sort of hit its crest and then sort of descended. And I think we were lucky enough to be part of, you know, the next rise in media. And I find it interesting that there seems to be an energetic leveling up too. Like here, it was Ray Bradbury stories and Jack Williamson and people writing. It was just text, you know. And then when we sort of came into the scene, comics were really developing. And I guess comics were developing themselves too through the 60s and 70s. But now we had like visuals to go with the text. And then things spun and burned and were very, very, it was like this creative firestorm that we were part of. And that kind of wound down. And now we've got people on YouTube. So now there's an audio and you know, video component. So it's like the energetic level has gone up a notch even. There's more data crammed into the cycle. And I'm like, And when I started thinking about it that way, I thought it's important to follow that trend, because when I was a kid I wanted to be a writer, and then cartooning came after. It's like, I want to be able to animate as well and draw comics. And now I'm thinking learning audio, learning video, you know, want to call it animation, but it's we can capture motion. That seems to be the next an important part of this creative journey that I think we're on, and it's one of the reasons I'm sort of fascinated with it. Anyway, like I said, I'm rambling. How long are we gonna run this? How long? What time is it anyway?
We're here, and we've been here an hour and 4 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, maybe another half hour. Is that fine with you? Or
yeah, that's great. That's perfect.
Yeah. I'm having a great conversation here. I do get up early in the morning. This is usually late for me. I usually get up at 2 in the morning.
Yeah. 2 in the morning. That's when you get up.
Yeah. I used to work for a delivery company or a courier service, where I was self-employed with these people. So you have to use your own car, and I'd have to get up at 2 in the morning because I had to pick up in Guelph, which is probably about a 20-minute drive from here, or half an hour. And I would get up, shower, watch a little bit of TV, have something to eat for breakfast, get in my car, drive to Guelph. I think I'd leave at 3. I get there about 3:30 in the morning. I pick up a bunch of boxes and then drive to Toronto. And I did that for about almost 3 years. So I had a Ford Focus wagon, drove that right to the ground. I think I put over 400,000 kilometers on it. The transmission went. I blew the engine at 344,000. There was a faulty spark plug or something. And when I went to go and get gas, came back in the car wouldn't start. So I was doing 400 kilometers a day on the car. So I was getting up Monday to Friday from 2, and I wouldn't get to bed until 8. Once I got a few more jobs, I wouldn't be going to bed until 8 at night, and then I'd be doing that. And then weekends, I'd be waking up at 4. But then all of a sudden, I got back in that cycle in the last couple years, and I've been waking up at 2 automatically. I get these weird dreams.
Oh, yeah. I'm curious about other creators and their relationship with the dream world. Do you find that you remember them when you wake up?
Not a lot of times I don't.
I find
whatever it is dramatic enough to wake up,
Yeah. I find I go through periods where it's just like you wake up and they're gone. Other times they're with you all day and you're like, oh my God, it's
or the tail end of them. Usually I remember some of the tail ends of them, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like an interesting one. Maybe that's staying in my head because it needs me to write it down or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the last couple of Star Drop strips I've been, giving the characters dreams, and it's a really interesting way of exploring depths of the character. Like, okay, well, what are they concerned about? But I would do it in the same way a dream would. I go, oh, I'm going to totally draw this neat dream sequence without any thought to the psychological significance. Come out of it and go, oh, that's neat. And then you're like, then you dream analyze your own creation, because it's all coming from your own subconscious. When you think something, oh, this would be fun to draw, you draw it. Well, where did that come from? And so I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh, I think my main character's it does make sense. There are these forces in her life, and they've been exerting their impact or their influence on her, and she's been affected by it and hasn't been facing it. And here it is coming out in the dream sequence. That's fabulous. Well, I'm going to have her analyze that and react to it. It's this neat 3-point triangle that I get to be part of. I find writing so therapeutic and so important. It's such an important part of my process. But yeah, it often happens at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and you have a piece of paper next to your bed to write this stuff?
No, I find it sticks with me profoundly when I am in a remembering state. And my poor landlord, I'll come downstairs and, I had these really hard dreams, man. And he'll sort of go, you can see him wondering, should I ask? But he's interested. He goes, what happened? Then I'll talk about it. And because he's part of my life, he can have an insight into that. And so it's interesting to sort of talk things through. Because it's easy to analyze other people's dreams, but analyzing your own is a little bit more difficult. You don't see the metaphors quite as readily. So it's good to have friends around who can say, oh, really? You had there was this one part where I had to that's it, I'm leaving. and I had to take all my stuff with me. I had like my regular backpack, you know, which has a laptop and a sketch pad and drawing tools and a few other bits and pieces. That's my walking around town backpack. But then I was also taking my toolbox with me, and that so it's got like hammer and all the various bits and big pliers and all the soldering iron stuff. So okay, your toolbox. But then I also had this great big camping backpack that had like changes of clothes and food and light, flashlights and stuff. And this is all the crap I had to pull with me. And he's like, "Huh? So you're taking your baggage with you?" And I was like, because I was just, this is all the shit I had to carry. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a representation of all the stuff that I do pull with me through life. That's, huh? What does that mean?" And so I end up like spending a lot of time analyze. So what kind of a place do you live in? Do you have a lot of stimulus around me? Because I live out kind of in the woods almost.
Yeah, well, I got a lot of stimulus around. Yeah, got a mall close by, a small little plaza nearby, a high school next to me.
Whoa, you're in the thick of it, man. It's
Yeah,
do
and
you
then
find that affect? Go ahead.
what it affects me, or is that what you're going to say?
I was just wondering how that affects your creative process to have to live in the middle of that kind of energy storm.
I don't know. I don't like it too much. Like when I lived in Newfoundland, or I go down and visit, and I wandered around the wooded area, and that would help with the creativity when I came back. I would
Okay.
just have a fury of just creativity. Um, but I find a lot of I don't really like it too much. I like to be a little bit in the more quiet areas, more wooded area. Probably where you're at, and it's probably inspirational for you, right?
Well, it's funny because I used to live in Toronto, and that's like ground zero for too much
Yeah,
stimulus. And it was
yeah,
very, very exciting when I lived there. I shared a studio with Tara. You remember Tara Talon or Tara
yeah,
Jenkins? We called her back then.
yeah, yeah.
And I had all these cartoonist friends. There was, you know, every week you're guaranteed to get at least one cartoonist visiting for the day. And it was very exciting and wonderful. And then after a certain point, I I found it was not agoraphobic or claustrophobic. It was just too much stimulus, and it was making me insane. And I had crazy roommates, and I couldn't focus on what I wanted to do. And yes, it was like this wonderful stew pot of ideas. Like if you just walk through the city, you're going to be buffeted with all kinds of things that sort of feed the imagination. But it was like more than I could deal with. And then I moved out to Nova Scotia and into the relative calm of a very quiet and pristine environment. And you'd think, oh, you could be so creative here. um, it didn't. It had the opposite effect. I found that I was excited about living. Like I met some wonderful people. I met a girl and we started going out for several years, and I ended up caught up in life, and it was very hard to sort of tear myself out of real adventures and write about pretend ones. Um, and only much later have I sort of found a nice balance, because it's so easy to just step out the door and go, why would I ever want to put myself at a drafting board when there's all of this? So I find it can be a little difficult to find motivation. I figured out, I've solved that nut, but I found it was easier to work hard in a city where everyone's working hard and kind of connect to that vibe. But having the huh, I've lost the trail of my thought there. I'm gonna actually have to probably beg off fairly soon. My
Yeah.
energy level's beginning to diminish. I just did a whole interview show earlier today, so I've been in front of cameras and in front of microphones for quite a bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure there's a nice tie off to that thought, but I'll let the viewers figure that one out for themselves.
Yeah.
Oh
I
man.
got, I got a question for you. When you write your stories, do you write them in a script, or do you do layouts instead?
Um, let's see. Do I have anything pulled up here? Uh, yeah, here we go. This is let's- so here I have the latest Star Drop strip, and it's got it's all inked and done. But what I would begin with is get rid of all of this and balloons and the lettering and the layouts. So I start off with one of these, and I'll write just dialogue. I'll go panel 1. I'll just go 1, meaning panel 1 right here. Whoops. So there it is. And I would just write, this character's saying this, and it comes out so quickly that I have to write as fast as I can, because the whole thing's happening it's already happened in real time, or I'm hearing it almost, because 2 weeks happen between each Star Drop strip. So I'll leave the characters in a cliffhanger situation, and then I'll spend 2 weeks going, how am I going to get him out of that? Or what's going to happen? Or, oh, her heart's breaking over this thing. And so all of this stuff is happening in my subconscious. When it comes time to, okay, I need a script, I've never been worried about what am I going to write? I'll like pull up a document, and I don't give any kind of screen direction, because I can imagine it all, which is nice, being the sole worker. I don't have to like describe to the artist what the visual should be. I already can see it, so I don't have to. Yeah. I can dispense with that, and I'll just sort of say, Michelle says this, and then the person responds. So I have to write really quickly, and the whole thing's written in 10 minutes, and bam, and then I have to go in and edit it and just sort of nudge things so it'll fit within 12 panels, and yeah. So scripting, that's how it happens, and then it just comes down to 10 hours of, all right, let's put the lettering in. And so you do the lettering, and we do that first. And unless I have like a very specific graphic, this particular one was very simple on the graphic side. It was mostly just a dialogue strip. Right. You drop in your layouts, and so I'll just pencil, and then and all of this stuff serves the dialogue. It's all dialogue driven with my work. But I did one a few weeks ago. It was a science fiction sort of outer space shoot 'em up adventure, and I had like big, like double panels that were, this is just going to look cool. I want to see robots firing big blaster weapons. That's, we're not going to have any dialogue in that panel. I just want to draw cool robots. So yeah, my process is kind of like that. But yeah, there's definitely my subconscious. I've talked about this before in my own comment sections and videos, that my subconscious is so in charge of where stories go, and it's really smart. It's way smarter than I am. I just sort of feed it problems and scraps. It's like having a monster in the closet, or a genie, or your muse. And my muse treats me very, very well. And so I thank it, her, him, whatever it is, that force out there, or whatever monster is in my subconscious, it knows how to write very, very well. I just have to promise on my side to put in the work to realize that. Say, okay, you're going to give me a script. I'm going to give you 10 solid, excellent hours of my very best work. Otherwise, you might go and visit someone else. I don't want you to leave my subconscious and go be someone else's muse. It's jealous of my muse, So yeah. That's how that. Yeah. What's your process?
Well, my process is I just sit there I grab a book like this.
Oh yeah.
You can got my name on the book here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's not a coffee shop I go to. You've probably seen it on Facebook. I go to my second home.
Uh-huh.
And then usually what I do is, let's see if I can get.
Oh, okay.
So hang on, let me get it over here for you. I can try and find my right hand where I'm going. Let's go. I gotta go over here. Over here, where my thumb was pointing. Where is it now? Right here. This one here I'm working on right now. Mm-hmm. These are the bricks that you see in the background over here.
Oh yeah.
And this is sewers. So it's water going through here, and so it's a big pillar, and then there's an archway, and then there's a sidewalk that goes over here underneath in the sewers.
Okay. So
I'm introducing the Mad Burger. So I just basically sit there and I come up with images, and then I come up and I do once I do the artwork, I scan it in, and then I do the lettering digitally.
Okay. So how do you figure out what the plot and the larger sort of story direction is going to appear as?
It just happens to come.
Yeah. Okay. It's the same. You're same as me. You're like, something else is telling you what to do, and you're realizing it through little sketches, and I'm doing it through like a keyboard as fast as I can, because those are thumbnails, man. You're just like hammering out thumbnails one after another to get the story down.
Yeah. Yeah. I always look at it. I'm tapping into another universe. And I'm watching a movie, that out of the universe, and all these characters are real. I'm just happen to be tapped into a little energy wire that goes into this world, and then I see the stuff that goes around because I see this stuff moving.
Yes.
So I know the plot because I see it all happening. So I'll just put it in layouts, and then I'll just take it from the layouts. And if I don't feel like lately, I haven't felt like drawing it from memory, I'll take it and scan it into the scanner and print it on an 11 by 17 sheet, and then do the light box.
Right.
And do it that way, and then I'll have a rough, and then I'll put it up on the drawing table, and then I'll start working on it then. Or I usually take it on my.
Yeah.
I
was just going to say, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No problem. Go ahead. Tell me. I'm getting it.
Well, I was just going to say that it doesn't surprise me that you're an intuitive, like you're basically an antenna. This is how I work as well. And you raise your mast, and the ideas come, and you have to sort through it. It's very different from how I've seen other creatives. They have like the idea boards with lots of Post-it notes, and they're sort of constructing things in a very rational, like it's all frontal, cortex thinking, and they build beautiful, really well-crafted stories, but they're not connected to the dream side so much. That comes later. They have to sort of fill in around the edges, because you'll sort of see writers. I think. I don't know if people are like truly invested in the argument, like saying, no, my way is right and your way is wrong, but people describe with great passion the system they use to reach the idea island, how they get out there. And they have like shorthand terminology for it. You've got people who call themselves planners, and then you've got people who call themselves pantsers. And the planner, they're methodically creating a story from beginning to end using all the systems that they understand and learned from writing courses. And the pantsers, they're flying by the seat of their pants. They're just going as quickly as they can, and each side has criticisms of the other, like, well, if you're planning so carefully, where's the inspiration? Like, where's the love, where's the fire? And the planning side goes, well, you know what, you guys, you have all the fire, but what happens when you write yourself into a corner and you can't get out? And so the real the way I look at it is that you've got to marry the two. You've got to lean on your strengths, but cultivate the other side, because both sides have very valid points. I think that's sort of the job as the artist, is to sort of learn how to become the whole, the whole package in one go. So it's curious to see how you do it. Like I know people who work in thumbnails as well.
Yeah, well, when I did Max Burger number 2,
Mm-hmm.
I did all the double pages on my drafting table. Me and my dad, we took a trip to Newfoundland for a month. I ended up taking this along with me.
What's that?
It's a portable drawing table.
Okay, cool.
I don't know what's called, the Cornage, Koninoor.
Yeah.
Now, when I bought one of these years ago, it was $35. This is back in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
I just bought it recently at Staples, maybe about 5 years ago, and it cost almost $100 for a piece of plastic. You get a ruler that snaps to it, and that. But all my single pages, I did that on the road in my second book. And
wow.
I didn't use any whiteouts to do the book, and you could see my blue lines, and you could just see scribbles. But when I went in and did the ink, I was able to sculpture it the way I wanted it. I don't know how I did. I just don't remember. I just remember just drawing the rough figures of the characters, and then I was able to do the finishing with the inks.
I was never able to sort of draw on the road. That's very impressive to me, that you're able to you just sort of set up in a hotel room and do it like that. Like
that'd be in somebody's living room or something like that, and doing that there, or maybe sitting in a campsite in a chair. But yeah, I did all the single pages for Max Burger number 2 on the road. All the doubles I did them all ahead because I had everything planned out, so I knew exactly how the story started and how it ended. So and all the artwork seemed to, the style seemed to stay the same too. but it wasn't that. I was taking a lot of drawing classes.
Okay.
I think that's one of the best advice to give somebody is take life drawing classes and draw all the time.
Yeah.
You're out drawing figures and stuff like that. I had the guy that told me to draw that artwork that big,
Hmm.
told me, well, he had a drawing class. He was a teacher at a school called Open Door. It's a school for adults. So if you wanted to go back and grade your grade 12 or 13 or whatever it is,
Hmm.
you can go back when you're in your 20s or something like that. 20s, 30s, 50s, And he was teaching three classes, grade 10, 11, and 12. And
Okay.
I took all three of those classes. And he did a drawing session. He was sharing a studio with a bunch of artists, and they would have a drawing night. So they would bring models in, male, female, and you'd have people coming in with paints, clay, and stuff like that. So I'd bring in my paper, and I would experiment with different stuff like popsicle sticks. I would dip it in the ink and draw with that. And I would draw with pencil, and we'd have different. We would start off with the gestures, and then we'd go into the final drawing.
What I found amazing about life drawing is that, we did some in high school. We did some in. I was in art college for like a year. Is that you have one or two classes where you're working with a model, and you're just doing your best with that medium. I found that the amount of advancement would be very rapid in a very short period of time. And then when you stop work, and then when you leave the class, that's kind of where you are until you do it again. It was almost like this measurable advancement, but it would only happen in these short little spurts during classes that would happen years apart sometimes. And yeah, I'm beginning to lose cohesion here. I'm gonna have to
Yeah, but
bug
yeah,
out of here.
I'm starting to get tired too. We've been almost here for like an hour and a half.
Okay, that's a good.
So it's been great. It's been great, Mark, talking
Yeah,
to you.
I appreciate you reaching out. It's a good idea. We should do more of these kinds of things, and I like the system that you're setting up. Who you got coming in after me?
I have nobody else. I'm going to bed.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I mean like
Oh,
on the schedule for the future.
I don't have anybody for tomorrow,
Okay.
but I do have Claudio. I can't think of his last name. I met him a few years back. Just give me a moment. I'll let you know who his last name is. He lives in Mississauga. He does. He used to be he took the Kubert School of Art.
Oh, cool. Very good.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's find him. Claudio. Actually, I got him in here. Gennaro is his name.
Okay.
Ghirado is his last name, and his first name is Claudio.
Very good.
So he's coming in on Thursday at 2 Eastern Standard Time.
You know who you should have? Like I noticed when you put out the Facebook call out, a friend of mine named Dave Whalen. Do you remember him? He wrote a little thing. I saw. Oh, hey, Will. He said I'm an indie publisher, and if you go look through your Facebook posts and find Dave Whalen because he's.
Oh, I did have him. He was on my channel. Yeah.
Oh, you've done an interview with him already.
Yeah, we done it. Let me see here. I think I did it on Thursday of last week.
Oh, right on. I gotta go check that out. He's one of my favorite people. I never see him, but whenever we cross paths, it's always a real treat. And I just said, oh yeah, Will's got to have Dave on. He's a really fun guy, and he's got some really good. Anyway, whatever. You did it already. So was it a good interview? Or?
So you have to find it on my wall. All through all those millions of posts I put up every day.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna clock out of here. Thanks for having me on, man. It was lots of fun.
No problem.
If you got any more projects in the future, let me know, and we can do this again.
Before you go, we got 2 people watching. Plug what you do, where they can find you.
Oh yeah, just I'll just put a link up on your on this thing on Facebook. It'd just be a link to my website. It's Easy peasy. Just look up my name, look up Star Drop or Thieves and Kings or Jenny Mysterious, and you'll find your way there. Yeah. So thanks, man. That was
no
fun.
problem. Take care. You have
All
a
right,
good
man. Take care. All right, cheers.